Good afternoon, Center for Effective Living community. It's Valerie Ling here, clinical psychologist, coming live to you on this, what are we up to? Tuesday afternoon. I'm just going to log on here. I'm learning all about technology. Now, after my post yesterday about screen time and swapping out the dinosaurs and learning new technology, I'm actually practicing what I've been saying, and I am learning how to do these Facebook Lives in a way that I can share to multiple pages. So I'm just going to do that now. Very good. There, done. Okay. I want to talk to you today about my real thoughts about screen time limits. Right. Yesterday I raised the possibility that we could look at screen time as a way of being communal, having a space in your home where screen time is used by the family, and looking at a way to not just clamping down and saying no, but really respecting that our kids are growing up in a tech-savvy, media hyped and internet connected world. But today I actually really want to talk to you about limits. Is there a need for limits? So the first thing I actually want to say is, when I think about parenting, there's a couple of words that I like to say to myself when I'm actually feeling like I don't know what to do. Okay? The first thing I say to myself is, nothing that goes through or that's going on with my kids, I'm not afraid. Nothing could possibly scare me for whatever my child is going through. That's the first thing I like to say, is that you've got to believe that you can handle whatever your child brings to the table. Don't be afraid. Even if you don't have the answer straight away, you can say the magic words, "Let me think about this." What does that do? It buys you a little bit of time. You get to call a friend, you get to do a little bit of reading, and you get to let the asking actually settle down. Because if you keep responding straight away, you're actually just encouraging them to not delay gratification. Okay, so the first thing, never be afraid. Just say to yourself, I am not afraid. The second thing I'd like to say is a handy phrase to have, is to basically say, I am the right parent for my child. I am the right parent for my child. And so therefore, whatever decision I make within my best interest for my child, within the experience that I have, I am the best parent for my child. And therefore, even if I might say something now and then think, oh, maybe that wasn't such a great call, I can always return to the conversation and explain that and say, even though I said you could do that before, I'm actually going to say that that's not right. Okay, so two things. I'm not afraid, and I'm the best parent for my child. With that in mind, let's have a look at screen time. Now, I'm actually going to give you my personal thoughts about screen time. We need to have limits on it. Why? One, because developmentally, children are still growing, their brains are expanding, their senses are developing, and very importantly, they're kind of adapting to their environment based on what we give them, right? So if a child is born, for example, swimming every day, you're going to sort of expect that when they grow up, they feel very comfortable with water, and they may gravitate to it as a way to soothe themselves, right? So in the same way, if we allow our children to only have screens as a way of soothing boredom or distracting them when they're upset, that's the only thing that they will know to satisfy their appetite. So because they're developing, and because they're still developing their repertoire of coping and soothing skills, only having screen time with no limits doesn't do them any favors. In fact, I'm going to read off here now. The American Academy of Pediatrics suggests that children under 18 months should avoid screen time other than video chatting. So you might have grandparents, for example, who live overseas. Children aged 18 months to 2 years can watch or use high-quality programs or apps if the adults are watching or playing with them to help them to understand what they're seeing. So here's my little thing about this. If you have very young children under the age of 2, right, you want them to get used to not just screens, but any experience that they're growing up through, that they're used to having you by your side. Whether you're reading a picture book with them, whether they're trying out food for the first time, whether they're going into a shop for the first time, whether they're engaging with social media, you want them to get used to the idea that you're right next to them, that you're accessible, that they can go and explore and come back and you'll be there. So that was my little thing, 18 months to 2 years. Then children aged 2 to 5 years should have no more than 1 hour a day of screen time with adults watching or playing with them. Okay, so what is actual screen time? It includes TV. It includes playing on a tablet, playing on a smartphone. It includes Skyping or watching YouTube, anything that involves looking at a screen. Children aged 6 years and older should have consistent time limits on the time they spend on electronic media and the types of media they use. There needs to be a clear start time and a clear finish time. So one of the things that we tend to see with kids coming in, getting a little bit unfocused at school, or their sleep not being good because of screens, is because there isn't really a clear set and finish time for screens. The screens are accessible. There's some loose guideline that makes sure that you don't watch too much. What is too much? And when does it actually become a screen activity? So I'm using my camera, but I'm also Googling. Or I'm just going to watch a little YouTube video because I've got to figure out how to do this thing. But then I'm going to also click on this and chat at the same time. What is screen time? We need to figure that out for our kids and actually say, screen time is this. It will start at this time and it will finish at this time. And then you've got to decide, based on very good information and guidelines like the ones that I've just read out, when that will occur. Can I say that personally, I've seen a lot of chaos happen when screens are switched on before school. Why? Because that just gets the kids into a distracted state of mind. There's often a lot of rushing around that has to happen. And think about it. We don't like to be interrupted in the middle of our favorite TV episode, or just as you're about to get, that, I don't know, what's the latest game? I used to play Candy Crush. Just as you're about to get your high score and someone says, switch it off. Doesn't quite work that way. They actually need some wind down time. So having it right up front before school doesn't do us any favors. The other time it's possibly not great is just before bedtime. For similar reasons. Being on a screen, it's stimulating, it's not really a great wind down activity. So my thing about having limits is there's actually no reason why you can't tie the amount of screen time that a child has to things like earning pocket money. Think about that one. Is it really a right or a privilege for children to have screen time during the day? It's a little bit like asking, is it a right or privilege for them to get pocket money? Well, it depends on your family, right? So you can actually treat screen time as something that children need to work up towards. One, by age. So based on the guidelines, it would suggest that if they're a little bit older, they can have independent screen time. But maybe you want to set a list of things for them that they get through, that they can actually build up to get more time on the screen. I wouldn't suggest that you be militant with that, because screen time has got educational purposes. Sometimes you need to use it for school, and sometimes it's recreational, and sometimes kids are just communicating with others. But I guess what I'm more talking about is if children are feeling like, I actually really want to have a little bit more time because this game is really interesting, and you say something along the lines of, well, we can work up to that for the weekend. If you want to have an extension of your time, how about you do a couple of these things to work yourself up to that? This is pretty controversial, I know, because when I'm reading through my own Facebook feed, I see a lot of comments about people's opinion about it. I guess what I'm trying to say is, let's not get too militant about it, but let's also think about it as something that we don't have to be afraid about. We can actually, as parents, look at it and say, well, what skills is that developing? How is that helpful for them in terms of their attention span? How is that actually disrupting family life at the moment? Are we having loads of arguments? Are we actually having screaming bedtimes? Well, if it's actually disrupting family life and creating stress, let it go. It's okay. It can always come back into the plate calmer time. So remember, I said in the last video, if it does get to the point where you need to let it go, there are lots of wonderful ways that you can do that without coming across as being punitive. And one of the best things to do is to increase positive connection time. Make something nice out of the void that screen time was occupying before. So that's all I just wanted to share in terms of my own personal thoughts about limits and the place for it for screen time. Talk to you later.